Alrighty. So I wanted to start recording me learning the C programming language with the hopes of eventually being able to use something called SGDK, which is the Sega Genesis Development Kit. And that is for development of, Sega Genesis, Sega Mega Drive games. So I don't have a background in computer programming. I did take programming very early on in college, but I changed my majors to business very early on in college. I did learn a little bit of JSON, JavaScript. I did more of like a computer history of programming course that was apparently a junior level course that I was woefully underprepared for. Prior to that, I never actually took classes for it, but I did learn some HTML, which is a markup language. It's not really a programming language in a sense. Learned a very small amount of CSS, which is cascading style sheets, I believe. But that was all for web design, and I did develop a few web pages a long time ago, back in the day, but nothing too complex. Now, what I'm using to study C is this course that's on YouTube called Programmies, and this attractive young Indian lady here is the one that teaches the course. As you can see, it says C Programming for Beginners. I have wanted to record these lessons for a while now, or just me going through these lessons. I just didn't have all of my stuff together to be able to do that, like my computer mic. I still don't have my my webcam hooked up, so hopefully I'm going to get that done at some point. However, I will kind of just, as I'm going through the code, kind of explain what I've learned so far and what I'm doing. More so was just to, as I do it, just to get my thoughts out there and what I'm thinking when I'm writing the code. Now, normally I would just write the code in this online C compiler that is linked to in the YouTube video here that you can go to. It's this link here. It'll just open up this online C compiler, and then any code that you put in here, you will just click run, and then it runs it on the other side, and then you click clear to clear out the code. So very basic stuff. Obviously, it's a beginner programming course for C. But for those that are going to be doing computer language, I highly suggest you look into something like Visual Studio Code or Notepad++, or just some other IDE, which is basically what you would write your code in, and then you would download plugins to help you compile that code, because you can't just run C code. It has to be compiled into a different format. That format is then run. There are plenty of tutorials on YouTube that explain all this. It's a little complicated. I've not been very successful at it, so I've just been using the online compiler, and we'll cross that bridge as far as like compiling C and then running it later on once I get a better grasp of just writing programs and things of that nature. So if we jump back, so the last thing that I learned, and I'm not going to be doing it here, was the switch statement, and they were using these switch statements to essentially do a little program that would list the days of the week. And you would basically, what the switch statements would do is whatever information you input in there, it would return variables. In this case, let's say 1 through 7 were the days of the week, and depending upon what number you entered in there, it would return, like a Thursday, Tuesday, whatever the case may be. but I'm not going to be doing that right now. What I was wanting to do was revisit some of the concepts that I learned in Lesson 9 and Lesson 10, which were the if-else statements, ternary operators, and the Boolean use of Booleans, which are basically statements that you can write that will allow you to do like a true-false statement, which gets reported back as a 1 or a 0. So, and I was basically a ternary operator is a way to write in what's called an if-else statement. So basically you have a string of code that says, if this is what you're writing here, do this, otherwise or else do this. And this will make more sense as I actually go through the code and kind of explain what I'm doing. So essentially what you want to do, or at least what I've been doing, and I've found this to be helpful, it's just you go through the videos, learn the concept, and then you just kind of make something, write your own little program. In this case, this is just a stupid little program that I'm going to be writing where somebody shakes an 8-ball, and depending upon what the value is that they type in and whether or not it's going to be an even or odd number, it's going to return either this or something else. So let's go through this, and then I'll actually start typing the code once I get to the point where I need to start writing more code. So when you start with C, and I'm not sure if the videos in the program that I was doing in the course online explain this. I do have other reference books that I use. I believe there's a Programming C by a guy named Dennis Ritchie, I think is what it is. It kind of explains some of the more basic concepts, but essentially let's see. And I notice I'm missing something here, but most of your C statements, and I'm going to jump to this code over here so you can actually see what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so your code's typically going to start off with this include statement, and then it's going to have a stdio, which is for standard input output, and .h. These are all references to libraries or files. So this include means you're including this library for the standard input outputs, which are basically calls or commands that you're going to be doing to perform certain functions. For example, this print function, which allows you to print text on a string, that's not native to the C program. It's built into the standard input-output library. And then we have this other library for standard Boolean. And then for this, I'll explain what the defined statements are in just a moment. But typically, if you look back at this code here, you're going to have just the include standard io.h. You're going to have an integer, which is like a value. It's either a number or a phrase that doesn't have like a decimal point attached to it. And phrases, you don't really put phrases with decimal points or words with decimal points, because that wouldn't make any sense. But essentially, this is going to be what anything below this is going to contain what your program is. So you have your integer main, you have your parentheses here, and then you've got this, which is called a curly bracket or a brace, whichever you want to call it is fine. I'm going to be calling it a brace, just for reference sake. This here is going to be a brace. And then you have your print function, and then inside these parentheses, this is where you type in quotation marks the words that you want printed on the screen, and then every time you basically print or you write anything, it follows a format of the semicolon. Is telling you to basically execute this little miniature call or program that you're doing in here, and anything that's contained within this here is basically like a routine or a program that you're writing. It's basically subroutines all contained within your program as a whole. And if you click run again, it prints hello world, because that's all we're doing, is we're doing a print function of the phrase hello world. If you wanted to put a comma in here, hello world, and then there's other things that you can do in here, which this means to add a new line, or like a line break. And you could put this, and then this means to put a tab, and then we'll run this code just to kind of see what it does. Okay, so there's hello world, there's our line break. This is basically telling us how are you. So if you notice, there's a little space here after the how are you. So if you want, you can do it this way, and then it'll take out the space. Now, depending upon what you're doing and what you're inputting, it may see how this is all color coded, so anything within the quotation marks here is to let you know that it's contained within the print function. However, when I press enter to carry it down to the next line, it is going to break the code. And then you've got all this debugging information over here to the right, which is actually very helpful. It's a little hard to read, but eventually once you start playing around with it, you'll kind of get an idea of like what it's telling you. This caret here is basically telling you, okay, look in this general area, and then it's telling you that it's missing a quotation mark to basically make that part work. And then you'll notice that as you do that, and now you'll notice that once I put the quotation mark back in there, it's started to generate code again. So if I do this, which actually I want to keep this all on one line. So now if we run it again, there you go. Now as far as like how you write your code, how you format it,